Hey, hi, long time no see. Well, really long time no see because we're in the new year already, which, by the way, happy late new year. Anyways, sorry that I was gone for so long. I had to take a break because there were some IRL things I had to handle, but those IRL things ended up being a huge nothing burger because I was dismissed from them, which is completely irrelevant, but I'm back and that's what's most important. Normally, in the start of my videos, I would have my little chicken mascot greet you guys, but I just wanted to get straight into it with the speed paint and start explaining my process. So as you guys saw from the title, this is an OC introduction video. Some of you guys have been showing interest in me making an OC video, and I've also been wanting to make this video, so I thought what better way to start off the new year than with that. And as you can see in the background, I'm going through a very rough process where I'm trying to try out different sketches and poses. Normally, I don't show too much of my rough sketches and I just go straight into the design. But unfortunately, I'm currently having an art block, so a lot of my art felt unsatisfying for me. So if the art quality seems pretty bad, then that's the reason why. But before we get super sidetracked, let me introduce you guys to my OCs. I'm just going to explain their personalities for now, but later in the video, I will get into their actual story. And big disclaimer, unlike my other series, this story has nothing to do with romance. All of my characters are canonically related to each other, meaning that they are all cousins. That will be an important detail for later. The first character I want to introduce you guys to is my youngest, Liam Castillo. I did my best to pronounce the last name, but if I got it wrong, please correct me in the comments. Liam is supposed to be a huge nerd. At the same time, he's also a jock/popular guy, which you can obviously tell by the jersey jacket and the soccer ball he's holding. Because he's the least fleshed out character out of my main OCs, it's always been hard for me to describe his personality. The best I can do is by starting off with his background. If you've been keeping up, you would know that Liam is actually mixed. Because he comes from several different backgrounds, he has a hard time fitting in with each of them. Though I don't want this to be the main focus of Liam's character because I don't want to reduce him to just his ethnicity, I can't deny that this conflict does play a big role into his character. Just to give some context so you guys can understand this better, Liam has one side, which is the Panamanian side, that doesn't have a lot of family members. Then he has the completely Asian side, which is practically his whole family. The majority of that family is pretty accepting of Liam being mixed, but unfortunately, as always, the older generation isn't as welcoming. It is important to note that this story does take place in the early to mid 2000s. The location is specifically in the southern parts of North America. Basically, since Liam isn't able to fit in with his own family, he finds community within his guy classmates. I also want to mention that the small town is similar to Hawkins from Stranger Things. But like I mentioned before, Liam is an intellectual, so he surrounds himself with smarter kids. Even so, he makes sure that he is around the popular crowd as well, so he gets to experience a little bit of both worlds. And actually, a big inspiration for Liam, other than someone I know personally in real life, is Miles Morales. I don't want to get too rambly, but Miles was such a big inspiration because I love his character so much. I just think he's so sweet and super endearing, and I wanted to implement a lot of that into Liam. And a real quick side note, I am aware that the box top hairstyle is super overused for black characters. Liam is kind of based off of someone I know IRL, so I wanted to keep this hairstyle for the beginning of the story. But it won't take too long for him to get a new hairstyle. Just wanted to address that real quick because I know that this is a big thing within black character designs. But getting back on track, Liam likes to do a bunch of guy things. He likes sports, he likes talking about girls, the whole shebang. However, there is more to Liam that he doesn't want to expose about himself. Because like I said before, Liam's a nerd. He doesn't hide the fact that he's smart because that would be more of a flex than something to be embarrassed about, but he does like to hide his nerdier interests. For instance, he's a huge fantasy bookworm. If he had the chance, he'd play D&D, and if his strict parents didn't restrict him so much, he would probably be into a bunch of anime or cartoons. But that's too uncool for Liam, so he doesn't really expose that. I know that from what I've described, Liam doesn't sound like a deep character, but there is still more to him. Beyond his struggles with his identity, his parents overlook him for his younger brother. I haven't designed or named this younger brother, by the way. He's still a work in progress, but just know he's more pompous. And again, it's because his parents uplifted him and treated him like the golden child. And later in the story, these two will get into a massive fight. But we're not going to talk too much about that for now. Next we have Mitsuki Ghoul. Okay, first up, I know I'm not pronouncing her first name correctly. I actually do this on purpose because a lot of people were suspecting that I named her this because of the artist Mitsuki, but the real reason why I named her this was because of some dumb meme about Hatsune Miku, and at the time I was 15, so I read it as Mitsuki, so ever since I've just been calling her that. I also was going to name her Mika, but I changed my mind because it reminded me of that stupid ugly Genshin Impact character, so she's not going to be Mika. Anyways, I'm going to just say it for what it is. Mitsuki is straight up just my self-insert OC. Well, she's revamped into her own character now, but she's still pretty similar to myself. But point is, she does reflect a lot of qualities that I have. For instance, she's more masculine, but at the same time she tries to hide the fact that she's a bit girly. And of course, she's also an artist that loves anime, specifically Naruto, Soul Eater, and Gintama. Totally not a reflection of my own tastes. Aside from that, Mitsuki has moved back and forth from the city to her small town. A lot of the townspeople like to call her a city girl, even though she hates that title. And if anything, she's not so much of a city girl. Besides that, you can see in the speed paint that I'm giving Mitsuki some bandages and cuts on her faces. And that is because she likes to get involved with fights. And it's one of the reasons why her mom has moved her out from the city and back into her small town. That is, other than the divorce that's currently going on with her parents, but that's irrelevant. Mitsuki also has a younger brother, but unlike Liam, she doesn't fight with her younger brother, but she still doesn't like him because she has to take care of him and she has to be the older and responsible sister. Even so, Mitsuki isn't very much a responsible person. Instead, she would rather just draw in her little composition notebook and just maladaptive daydream to her shitty music. And for those of you who are wondering, she listens to Nightcore. She also hates her dad, and she blames her mom for a lot of her problems. You can imagine the angst and the teen drama here. But when it comes to her relationship with her cousins, it's a bit so-so. With Liam, him and Mitsuki hardly get along, and that's just because they're two extremely different people. Because like I said, Liam cares a lot about his reputation, but Mitsuki does not give a flying fuck about her reputation. Liam learns to obey his parents, but Mitsuki hates her parents. I would say that they are two sides of the same coin, but not really. At least, not so much in comparison to Mitsuki's relationship with her favorite cousin, Hanbi. So Hanbi is the middle child of the cousins. I named her Hanbi because it was off of some TikTok person's username that I just stole, because I thought it sounded nice. But anyways, Hanbi is more of the girly girl between the cousins. Both her and Mitsuki are a lot like sisters, and I would compare their relationship to Rainbow Dash and Rarity from My Little Pony. And like I said, Mitsuki is secretly girly, so both Mitsuki and Hanbi like to do girly stuff together, which is another reason why Liam is unable to fit in with Mitsuki and Hanbi. But even though Hanbi seems like a preppy girly girl, she's also a bit of a diva, and I actually think a better way to properly envision her character is like Sakura from Naruto, where Sakura seems very sweet at first, but she has like this inner voice in her head. That's exactly what I want for Hanbi. At school, she's very reserved, and a lot of people get this feeling that she's stuck up, but in actuality, she's just very reserved and quiet. Which reminds me, Liam is the most outgoing of the cousins, while Hanbi is just shy but she can conversate, and Mitsuki just has social anxiety. Anyways, Hanbi does have a small friend group at school, but again, she doesn't really like to hang out much. Instead, she would rather be in her own little world. As for her parents, she has a single mother who is unfortunately a bit controlling of her, which leads into Hanbi being a bit indecisive when it comes to decision making. This can stem from small things like being unsure of what she wants to order on the menu, or bigger things like deciding what she wants to do with her life. Between Mitsuki and Liam, she is a mix of the two, where she's a bit creative like Mitsuki, but at the same time she is intelligent like Liam. But again, Hanbi is indecisive and she is living in an environment where it's super restricting, and it also doesn't push her to grow as a person, because her mother lives vicariously through her, which may or may not be a bigger conflict for Hanbi. That pretty much wraps up my character introductions though, but I still have one thing left to talk about, which is their story. In the first draft of my script, I was going to briefly go through the different concepts of my story before it became what it is today, but I decided against it because I think I'm running out of time. So we're just going to get into it. For reference, I don't actually have a name for the story. I've just been calling it 3 as a placeholder, and in my little playlist for all of my characters and their arcs, I've listed all of them as untitled, so just keep that in mind. But to summarize my story, 3 is essentially about 3 cousins who suffer from a broken family. And this broken family leads magical forces to intervene and send them to another world, which is essentially a hellscape. Some of you are probably getting lost because I was making this sound like it was some coming-of-age teen story, so let me explain myself. For this other world, it isn't based on your typical idea of a fantasy world. I wouldn't describe it as a parallel version of the Cousins world either. It's more of an amalgamation of the Cousins' imaginations. Think Coraline combined with Alice in Wonderland and Frambo. In this world, there are 3 lands, and these 3 lands belong to each cousin. I haven't drawn any concept art for these lands because I suck really hard at backgrounds, which is part of my New Year's resolution to improve on this. So instead, I will be putting up pictures to give the idea what these islands generally look like. Each environment will be explored through 3 different arcs, versus Liam's, Mitsuki's, then Hanbi's. I guess to some other people it would make more sense for me to format the order into the order of their ages, but I decided to do this specific order because it ties more into their conflicts and the level of how deep it goes. Anyways, each island is supposed to be a direct reflection of each character's personal struggles. For Liam, it's his conflict with his brother, being overlooked and losing connection with his family. For Mitsuki, it's bottling her emotions, lashing out through violent tendencies, blaming herself and becoming self-destructive, therefore losing herself and her ties with her family. For Hanbi, it's being unable to make a decision for herself, being able to find herself, and shutting people out due to how closed off she's become due to her mother's controlling behaviors towards her, and of course results into her losing ties with her family. You pretty much get the theme here. And a big important thing for this story is that each of these lands are ruled by a god. Well, god with quotations. I'm a really big fan of characters that have their own individual beast or monster or superpower. So for my story, each of my characters has their own individual god, but in this case, these gods are dragons. I would like to include these dragons in this video and introduce you to all of them, but unfortunately, none of them are finished. You see, I'm pretty on and off with this project, and I lose a lot of motivation because I can't finish the story without experiencing things IRL, and I need inspiration to complete the story. And also, this is a big passion project for me, so in the future, I actually want to tell this story one day instead of just sharing it through a YouTube video. Even though I don't have a lot to share about these gods or dragons, I can share their concept art, which is super unfinished, and I can briefly explain some things. So I wanted to do kind of an opposite effect where my main characters are 2 girls and a guy, and then the dragons would be 2 guys and a girl. This wasn't done for anything important, I just wanted to even out the gender ratio. But these characters do have placeholder names, and they are not the official names, so just keep that in mind. First we have Diana, which is Liam's dragon. She is essentially a water naga. Well, that probably feels stupid to say because nagas are mostly associated with water. I did take some inspiration from Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon. Well, more specifically from her concept designs because the official design is fucking ass and that is not a representation of Southeast Asian culture. Bye! Sorry, I got sidetracked. But other than that, I did put a bit of orca themes into her design, and I wanted to include a lot of astronomy into it, because Liam, I forgot to mention, he's super into astronomy, so I wanted that to be super important. But moving on, we have Blobby. Okay, actually, this isn't a placeholder name, Mitsuki gives him this name. Still, he does have a real name, I just haven't decided on what that would be yet. But anyways, Blobby is a European dragon. Sorta. Well, actually, Blobby was one of the first dragons I designed because he was initially supposed to be the mascot for my comic, before I started changing things around. And Blobby, you can see he has heavy inspiration from Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon, but the design looked way too similar and I didn't want to get copyrighted, and also I just wanted this to feel more unique. So I did try to change his design a little more, and it's still a big work in progress, but this is just what I have for now. For his magical themes, it's a bit hard for me to decide on what I want. I do know that I kind of want him to look more like a boar, and I guess like a big inspiration was the boar demon from Princess Mononoke. I don't know, I just wanted him to be super grotesque, and I've been calling him the Chaos Dragon. I don't know, I'm still workshopping that. And finally, we have Hanbi's dragon, which I've been calling him Chin for now. Super basic, I know, but I just need a name so I have something to call him for the meantime. For Chin, he's obviously an Eastern Chinese dragon, but other than that, I don't really know what I want to do with him. I just know I want him to be super serious, and some of him is a little bit inspired from Chinese opera, but that's only like a little bit. I guess a better example of how I would describe his character is Ao Guang from Ne Zha. I love that movie, by the way. That's actually one of Mitsuki's inspirations, but we can't keep getting sidetracked. But that's more so design-wise and a little bit personality-wise, but again, I'm still workshopping him, and between Diana and Blobby, he is super underdeveloped. But that's my fault because, like I said, I'm super on and off with this project, and I just overthink a lot, as you can tell from most of my other videos, which is why I decided to do redesign videos because it helps me take some space from my actual project. It also helps me come back to this project with a more clear and fresh mind. But since I'm taking YouTube more seriously as my job, I do get more time to think about this project. I don't think that I'm going to make more videos explaining lore stuff because, again, I want to actually tell this story one day, but I do think that maybe making AU videos for my characters could be an option. Like, for example, how Ginja Ninja has their Prism OCs where they used to do these designs as if they were in other magical girl shows. Something like that. And if it's on high demand, maybe I will redesign and actually finalize my Dragon OC ideas. But that's only if you guys bully me hard enough. I'm joking. But anyways, of course, this does not mean that I'm canceling my Yandere Simulator project because, like I said in my previous video, I just wanted to make a video for myself for once. And I felt like I needed to take a break from that project so I can come back to it with a more fresh mind. So don't feel too concerned about that. I do want to say that there are a lot of details that I left out in this video. For instance, I wanted to go into deeper explanation about the Asian American experience. In my opinion, it's pretty pivotal to my characters because it's a reflection of my own experiences. But maybe it's better for me to actually share this in the real story. I also did want to get into the corrupted designs that I've shown in the speedpaint, and I will show on screen right now, because this is also very important to their story. But again, maybe it's better if I save this for the real comic, or whatever this will be in the future. For now, I finally returned back to YouTube, and I'm trying to get back into the swing of making content again. And by the way, thank you guys for being patient with me since I was taking a break. Even if it was short, it felt pretty long to me, and I need to get back into the grind. Besides that, please let me know what you guys think in the comments about my OCs. These characters are super dear to me, and I put a lot of my personal experiences into each of them. And again, don't worry, I'm still working on Oka. There are just some things that I need to research, so I might need a little more time before I can publish her, but just so you know, I'm still working on her. She's on the way. And again, happy late New Year. I hope that you guys are having a great New Year so far. Some things are happening in my life that aren't bad, but they're just different, so I'm trying to adjust to that, as well as trying to make some changes to my channel. Not gonna say anything about what those changes will be, but you'll have to stay tuned for now. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and bye-bye!